Today we're diving back into Pizzagate, exploring the darkest of corners that have yet to be explored on YouTube. There are going to be a lot of things within this video that are going to shock you, so be prepared. Thank you guys for being subscribers to the channel. Let me know what you're drinking. I'm having my morning coffee. Now let's get into the story.
During the 2016 US presidential election, a theory known as Pizzagate began circulating online, alleging that prominent politicians, namely the Clintons and their associates, were involved in a child trafficking ring being held out of the basement of Comet Ping Pong, a family-owned pizzeria located in Washington, D.C. The theory originated when John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman during her run for president, had his email hacked and over 20,000 private emails published to WikiLeaks. In the Podesta emails, there's an abundance of really strange references to food that don't make a lot of sense, and they parallel the Epstein files that are being released now. But one of the most frequently mentioned locations in the emails was Comet Ping Pong. Of course, the difference in these situations is that we know what Epstein, his clientele, and his co-conspirators were all up to, so it makes it a lot easier to spot and decipher any potential coded language. Despite the widespread attention that Pizzagate received online, it was never formally investigated and was unanimously dismissed by the mainstream media as a far-right conspiracy. So it remains purely speculatory, but it does get you wondering. This is a very serious allegation to throw out, so why did it convince so many people? Well, one reason lies in the owner of Comet Ping Pong himself, James Alefantis. James Alefantis is a successful entrepreneur who owns multiple establishments in Washington, D.C., including his pizza restaurant Comet Ping Pong. He's an avid art collector and an extremely well-collected political fundraiser who has built a reputation for himself as one of the most well-connected donors in all of DC. In fact, if you remember from last video, in 2012, GQ magazine ranked him as one of the top 50 most influential people in the nation's capital, despite having no political power of his own. Alefantis was even thanked by none other than Hillary Clinton herself in the past for what she called an extraordinary talent during her Cooking with Fratelli Podesta fundraiser. He's also a close friend of John Podesta's brother Tony, with the two having been photographed together on a variety of different occasions, including repeated appearances at Comet Ping Pong celebrating Tony's birthday. Alefantis' former boyfriend was David Brock, who served as Chief of Media Matters, a prominent progressive news organization, until his departure in 2022.
Something you're going to notice as we go through this video are the connections between Pizzagate and a lot of politicians and people in high places. This is not just a pizzeria doing crimes. This is an entire network of people engaging in some really dark activities.
David Brock also founded Correct the Record, a super PAC established in 2016 to defend and support Hillary Clinton during her presidential run. And President Barack Obama even visited Comet Ping Pong himself during his second term. But when you take a deeper look at Jimmy Comet, James Alefantis' Instagram account, you see a lot of pictures of young kids, oftentimes accompanied by captions that are easily interpreted as troubling. Like this picture of a baby in the trunk of a car with the caption, "Moving the baby," or this one captioned, "Why does daddy like butt? Hashtag I'll tell you when you're older." You'll also stumble upon pictures like this one that can only be assumed to be related to the occult in some way. This is the last time I'll mention it, but if the occult thing seems like a reach to you, go watch part 1, because that is literally the most favorable interpretation that you can get. Like, at best, these people are 100% doing occult rituals. But on Jimmy Comet's Instagram, one picture stands out among the rest, and that's the one we're focusing on today. This picture shows what appears to be an empty walk-in refrigerator that many assumed was located in the basement of Comet Ping Pong. Alefantis would leave a comment under his own picture, writing hashtag murder, and another user going by "working on my night cheese" would comment hashtag kill room, giving the location its now infamous nickname. This is where a wrench gets thrown into the theory, because Pizzagate revolves around the basement of Comet Ping Pong, and Comet Ping Pong doesn't even have a basement. Right?
Clinton and Podesta have a series of smuggling tunnels that connect to the basement of this pizzeria, but police refuse to investigate the basement crime scene on the flimsy excuse that the pizzeria does not have a basement.
Does it not have a basement, or is it been covered up? Is there a way into it that no one knows? That's the true question.
The existence of Comet Ping Pong's basement is one of the most central and heavily debated aspects to Pizzagate. If the basement exists, the mystery around the theory survives.
Also, the basement for Comet Pizza doesn't actually need to be attached to Comet Pizza. This could be a basement at another location that is used alongside of Comet Pizza.
If it doesn't, the whole thing falls flat almost immediately. I think that's why the idea of Comet Ping Pong having a basement at all has been so jokingly dismissed by the media, because it undermines any credibility the theory might have to people hearing about it for the first time. Whenever it's brought up, it's not framed as an actual rebuttal, it's used as a punchline. There's a clip from the Late Night Show with Stephen Colbert. He jokingly shrugs off the entire theory based off of James Alefantis himself saying that the building doesn't have a basement. And it's very clearly framed as him making fun of these conspiracy theorists, because nothing like this could ever happen, right? This is just so crazy. I'm not saying that Pizzagate is real because of this, but this is a real thing that happens and has been happening for a long time, as we all know by now. And just dismissing it so easily like this, laughing it off, it would not fly today.
Yeah, and laughing it off like that leads me to believe that there's some type of involvement. If you're so strongly saying no, 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 finding reasons to say that something doesn't exist, when there is some evidence of this stuff, it doesn't look good for you.
Which is why Epstein is now sparking so many new conversations about Pizzagate. And also, Colbert is just taking Alefantis at his word, which makes no sense at all because he's one of the people who's implicated in this. That's like asking Epstein, hey dude, is there anything illegal going on that island over there? No. Okay, well, that clears everything up. We don't have to look into this at all. And Alefantis is not a reliable source of information anyways. The specific article that Colbert shows in his segment was published by CBS News in December of 2016. In the article, they write that Comet Ping Pong owner James Alefantis said that the restaurant does not even have a basement. In another interview Alefantis did with BBC, the news organization, they quote him as saying, "They ignore basic truths. We don't even have a basement," in reference of course to the conspiracy supposedly being ran out of the restaurant's basement. But he's not very good at keeping his story straight, because if you do a little bit of digging, things get kind of suspicious. Not even 2 years prior, in April of 2015, Alefantis did an interview with Metro Weekly. In this article, titled James Alefantis from Scratch, when asked what people couldn't believe what Comet Ping Pong made in-house, Alefantis is quoted as saying, "Well, we make everything from scratch. Other restaurants, even good restaurants, will not roast their own peppers. You can just buy the roasted peppers in a can, or you can buy garlic oil. Some products you can get, and they're consistent and they're easy." But I didn't even know that existed actually until they said that, because a lot of restaurants will open a can and put it on, like our sauce. We harvest a whole crop of organic tomatoes, 10 tons of tomatoes every year. Can them all, store them in the basement, have a harvest party when it gets loaded in.
He said store them in the basement, but then he states there is no basement. Oh, contradiction.
Comet Ping Pong has never moved locations, so James Alefantis is lying in one of these interviews. Either he was lying in the first interview, which is very unlikely in my opinion, that's a really strange thing to lie about, or he was lying in the second interview to put all of the rumors to bed. Even if we're being generous and assuming there's nothing nefarious going on in this basement, or even more generously assuming that he was lying in the first interview to make his business seem better and the basement doesn't even actually exist, Alefantis' contradictory statements only fuel speculation. Of course, I can't independently confirm whether this basement exists or not. Even if I went there, I highly doubt him or his staff are just gonna let me see it. But wherever this kill room is located, Alefantis really doesn't like people talking about it, and he especially hates when someone tries to pin down its location. In fact, one of the first people to report a breakthrough about the potential location of this room apparently had their and their family's lives threatened by Alefantis. In January of 2017, independent journalist Ryan O'Neill, who ran a YouTube channel dedicated to Pizzagate, posted a video claiming to have identified a property owned by James Alefantis as the location of this kill room. Through his investigation digging into building permits and property ownership details, he narrowed in on a building owned by James Alefantis through his company, Castle of Achilles LLC, a Latin phrase meaning Castle of Achilles. Castle of Achilles was registered June 16, 2014, and the property was purchased by Alefantis that same month. Just 3 days later, a Google Maps listing was created for the property under the name Pegasus Museum. The only review of the property was a 5-star rating left by Alefantis himself, which he would later delete. Now, Castle of Achilles LLC is a very interesting naming choice. Of course, Achilles is the legendary Greek hero from the Trojan war who gained invulnerability after his mother dipped him into the river Styx as an infant, the mythical body of water that separates Earth from Hades, the underworld in Greek mythology. This immersion into the river obviously made his skin impenetrable, except for the heel by which she held him by. This was his only weak spot and served as his fatal flaw that would undoubtedly be the end of him if anyone discovered it.
Understand how it all comes together. The Achilles heel. Also talking about this other property, the basement, as I mentioned earlier, very well may not have been under Comet Ping Pong. It may have been under another property, and that's where things could have been stored.
And of course, if you remember from last time, this isn't the first reference to Greek mythology associated with Alefantis. His profile picture on Instagram was literally the Greek boy lover.
Hi guys, this is Ryan with PizzagateGear.com. We have a super exciting breakthrough here. As y'all have all seen this video, or this picture right here, we've been working on trying to find the kill room and where it is. And we're 99% sure we know exactly where it is. So guys, I want to look at this picture and I want you to bring your attention to the circle in red and look at these bricks inside here. You'll notice there's going to be cinder block on top, cinder block on bottom. Then you'll see a red brick, and there's a split in this brick right here on the left. Now we're going to go to the next photo. Now this is a photo from somebody's website, a person of interest. And you're going to notice the same exact thing. The cinder block on top, the red, the black, and the split. And we're going to put these side by side and let you look at it for yourself. Alright guys, you see the split here, same angle. All the bricks are in the same pattern. Even the cinder block, the crease, the gap goes right into this black brick. Again, the gap goes right into this black brick. So guys, there you have it. We found the kill room.
That is the exact same room. Confident.
This is very exciting right now, but we have a lot more stuff we're going to be looking into. So this is the website we found where the bricks came from. So this is from margotwork.com. This is one of the guys that helped design Comet Ping Pong, helped design Pegasus. Oh, and guys, that's where this is. This is at Pegasus Museum, and we're going to be introducing you that shortly. Okay, so guys, we go here and we see Comet Ping Pong, or Comet Pizza, designed by Joe Wills. That's a very important name you're going to need to remember for later. James Alefantis, Peter Hapstack, and myself. Okay, so we go down here. Now this is actually a page that was deleted. So we go to the page now, and it's gone. It's something completely different.
They could time hop back.
That first name on that list, Joe Wills, this is actually some stuff he posted, and we believe this is at Pegasus Museum as well, where the kill room is located. So you're going to see the brick covered in white. Again, same as Smith Steel from Pajama Factory. He's a steel worker. Some very interesting stuff in these pictures, and we'll come back to it later.
Strange stairs.
This is somebody that works for Joe Wills, and he's wearing a Comet Ping Pong sweater, and we believe this is in what is called the kill room. The picture we saw at the very beginning. Let me go to it. It's in this room right here. So Joe Wills' employee is working in this room. Guys, we're going to move on. This is actually from James Alefantis' Instagram. So by itself, it's not much. But then when we go to the actual Instagram and we zoom in on this one right here, it says back at it, at Joe Wills. Thoughts? So he's contacting Joe Wills via Instagram and asking what his thoughts are on this design. This design is going to be come in useful later. It's actually the design for the roof of Pegasus Museum. So we go through Joe Wills. We look up Square Form, which is his company. Now, I can't get his LinkedIn information, but it does tell you right here, owner at Square Form. Next thing I wanted to introduce you to is this LLC. So Castellum Achilles LLC. It was formed by James Alefantis. He's the governor, CEO, governor, and then Robert Harris is the agent. So you're going to see the address over here on this side. You're going to see the dates, which is very consistent. So the first picture with the hole is from 12 or 11. It's late November 2014. The second pictures with the trenches dug is from late December 2014, and then these permits are from January 6, 2015. Now we're going to go to the side over here, and these permits were requested by Achilles Castellum. Again, more permits, guys. Same address, 16, alteration. And it's actually a cancel date, so this was canceled on February 8, 2016.
Shortly before posting this video, Ryan contacted Alefantis through Facebook requesting an interview with him, but received a stern no in response. However, after Ryan's video went live and it began receiving some traction, it's been alleged that Alefantis reached back out to Ryan and intimidated him into deleting it. In an article published by The Last American Vagabond, journalist Anthony Tyler writes, quote, "After attempting to schedule a research community user-submitted question interview with James Alefantis over his official Facebook page, O'Neill also gave his YouTube page information as well as information about his VAT research account to the pizza restaurant owner as a sign of professionalism. Alefantis told them that there was no chance of an interview. However, after O'Neill posted his video, Alefantis reached out to O'Neill with threats towards O'Neill's mother and girlfriend over the research that had been released. Firstly becoming aggressive over Facebook, Alefantis coaxed and intimidated O'Neill into a phone call, which led to a trip down a rabbit hole of threats and a fit of screaming by Alefantis that was said to last 3 minutes."
Well, I mean, obviously, Alefantis was not happy that this information was coming out. He's got a lot to hide, right? But honestly, get on the interview. Try and clean your name if your name is clean. But if you can't, it's probably because you have more to hide.
These threats, as reported by O'Neill, were very direct and unmistakable. Since the initial reports, Ryan O'Neill has contacted his local police department and filed a report, hired a lawyer, and even made an official report with the FBI. Furthermore, O'Neill was invited onto the Opperman Report interview research radio show to give his testimonial on record, which is hosted by private investigator and researching veteran Ed Opperman. Opperman has personally gone on record vouching for the authenticity of this case, having corresponded with O'Neill numerous times prior to the interview about the information. So obviously, again, bad optics, and this clearly comes off as panic. Now again, there's always two sides to every story, and if we're being charitable, James Alefantis could have just been under a lot of stress and wanted to put this whole thing to bed. I don't run a charity personally, I don't know about you, but clearly whatever's going on here, he really doesn't like people talking about it.
Of course.
So what's the big secret? But let's take a step back and take a closer look at the person who left that comment under the picture. #killroom. Like I mentioned, the comment comes from a user going by the handle "working on my night cheese." The account shows up under numerous posts made by Alefantis, like this one showing some sort of underground construction going on, where the user jokingly asks, "burying a body?" The user also had this picture posted on their own account showing the staff-only kitchen area of Buck's Fishing and Camping, another restaurant owned by James Alefantis located just next door to Comet Ping Pong.
What was the food on those plates? It looked very high end.
Looking further into the account, it appears that Working on My Night Cheese, or WC, owns a workshop in the Pajama Factory, a large industrial complex in Williamsport, Pennsylvania that was repurposed into an art center. As you can see in this picture that has Pajama Factory tagged as the location, another user makes a #killroom reference in the comments, and a variety of references just like this can be found all over the user's page. One of the most direct ones is this sketch of a coffin. WC captions this photo with, "There's a creepy space in the back of my shop that's been designated thusly."
The thing that I don't understand is why all of the online hints that could be found, hints that people can see and connect others to crimes. It seems like with many of these things relating to the Epstein files, to Pizzagate and more, there's always hints. They're throwing it in our faces as if we can't figure out what's going on. And then when we do, they laugh at us and say it's just a conspiracy.
He appears to be a welder, with many of his posts centering around designing metalwork projects, more specifically, coffins. One picture in particular even shows a finished design of one of these coffins, and it is noticeably small.
I was going to say the same thing. That looks like a child's size.
I feel like now's a good time to remind you that according to the FBI, cheese can be used as a code word for something else. Cheese by predators is oftentimes used as a synonym for girl, and as insidious as it even is to think about something like this, in the context of everything else, it would make sense here. Based on everything we know about WC, it would appear that this is his now deleted Etsy profile, which lists his name under Jeffrey Smith. Two of his favorite materials are listed as wood and steel, which both show up on WC's Instagram. Wood is of course very common in any form of craftsmanship, but steel is much less common outside of specialized trades. The location here also adds up, with Jeffrey Smith, the Etsy user, saying that they work out of a small shop located along the Susquehanna River in north-central Pennsylvania. This is also exactly where the pajama factory is located. Now, it's impossible to confirm Jeff Smith being the owner of Smith Steel, or even confirm that Smith Steel exists in the pajama factory at all. It seems to have very little to no social media or online presence. But it seems to be the case that WC is Jeff Smith. This is important because WC has connections with another Instagram account with the handle J Blair Smith. Both of these names obviously start with J, but more importantly, they share the same family name. So it can be assumed then that J Blair Smith is either Jeffrey Smith or a relative of his, most likely his brother. This is a picture posted by J Blair Smith that WC commented on. J Blair Smith captions this photo, "My favorite pizza." He also posted this picture of a statue of a small child with the ground around the child appearing to be charred black. Big Marina Abramovich vibes if you remember all the weird stuff they were doing with the spirit cooking. I know I keep saying it, but again, best case scenario here is that these people are just freaks, dude. These people are weird. If I knew somebody and they were posting this stuff to Instagram, I would literally be thinking, what the hell is wrong with this person?
Again, it's just strange that they're posting all of this stuff. Like, first of all, yeah, it's terrible that they would be doing these things, but why post about it? It's as if they're advertising to be found by clientele that would want to join in.
And is this really somebody that I want to keep in contact with? So even if nothing illegal's happening, these people are just so weird. And on that note, something important to know is that Comet Ping Pong is not just a pizza restaurant, but it also functions as a live performance venue. In addition to serving pizza and hosting ping pong games, the restaurant also regularly holds live performances. The back room where the ping pong tables are cleared out to make room for a ground level stage. One performer that Alefantis thought was special enough to receive a cocktail drink named after him was a cross-dressing performance artist known as Donna Slash. This is an onstage persona that the Comet Ping Pong Instagram page associates with the user Joshua Ryan V. The user Joshua Ryan V has posted these images to his Instagram account with the location being tagged as Comet Ping Pong. And I literally can't even show you these pictures because it's just Paygorn. That's all it is. The pictures are pizza themed, pizzas being used as a sensor in them, and it's really weird and frankly disgusting, especially when you think about it as this restaurant is being marketed towards families. The performances are marketed as being for all ages. Adults are free to do whatever they want, right? But these performances are being marketed towards children over the age of 9 years old. This is a family restaurant. Under the Comet Pizza location, there was also this photo posted by a performer going by Miss Summer Camp. James Alefantis leaves a comment writing, Miss Summercamp also posted this photo of a MasterCard ad showing a young girl taking a bite out of a slice of watermelon. The ad reads, "Tasting summer in a bite, priceless." Miss Summercamp captions the picture, "Saw this while I was in Greece." Priceless isn't the word most people use upon tasting meat. Another user, B_Retza, comments under this picture, "I think it's an error in translation. Should have been, you shouldn't have to pay to taste something like this."
They are just creepy, and to share and have these conversations publicly is strange.
Looking into this account, you can find this picture posted of a McDonald's baby changing station with the C etched out. Retza posts this picture with the caption, "Let's hang a baby." In another photo on this account, we can see a screenshot of a text message conversation. Retza is discussing pulled baby sandwiches with a man named Ryan Varner. Obviously, they're talking about baby back ribs being made into a pulled pork sandwich. Clearly. The same user also has a picture of this sign that reads 10 holes, $3. No children under 6 years may play. Clearly the sign is for mini golf, but Biretsa captions it with "a dime a dozen." Under that picture, another user with the handle Pizza Fucking Party writes, "I used to play Mortal Kombat there when we did elementary school field trips." I'll be referring to this user as PFP. PFP had this picture posted to their own account showing children gathering the contents of a piñata. From what we can see, and if we're taking PFP at their word, the piñata was filled with shots of alcohol and condoms. Whether these items are real or if this was some sort of sick joke is ultimately up for you to decide. PFP also posted this meme that reads, "High school friend. My husband just got a promotion, I'm pregnant, and we just bought our first house. What have you been up to?"
You also have to remember, all of this content was before AI. Like the piñata, for example. That image could not have been replicated, and I mean, I guess it could have been photoshopped, but it looked very real, and it wasn't like AI could have done something the way it could today. And you could debunk any AI with the AI debunking tools, so that's out of the question.
Me. And it's a hooded figure with black robes and horns standing in the middle of a pentagram surrounded by candles. They also posted this image of a pizza cut into a pentagram. And then there's this picture of a man in front of a pickup truck with the logo Baby Doll Pizza, captioned, "Pizza party every day, no regrets, party hardy, sacrifice slice, and dice party USA." The logo belongs to a pizza restaurant located in Portland, Oregon. Beyond this single picture posted by PFP, I can't find anything else online tying Baby Doll Pizza into any of the surrounding accusations of Pizzagate. However, Portland, Oregon is the same city where a man named Michael Whalen accused the owners of Voodoo Donuts of being involved in the trafficking of minors in a lesser-known sister conspiracy of Pizzagate that was dubbed Donutgate. On August 4th, 2018, Whalen went on Nathan Stoltman's YouTube channel, Lift the Veil, in order to share an incident after, according to him, he was, quote, made aware of people that were participating in the abuse and trafficking of minors in the city of Portland, Oregon. Whalen claimed that this incident was connected to the owner of Portland's Voodoo Donuts and that it was even connected to Comet Ping Pong. According to him, some of the employees from the pizzeria were in attendance at the Voodoo Donut party.
Are you aware that there were people last year that were talking about Voodoo Donuts being involved with child trafficking without much evidence?
I was not aware of that. And to anyone asking why, it's people trying to assign an ulterior motive to the whole thing, which I get. I get that everybody's playing some kind of game and some PR game or whatever. But the answer is very clear to me because this is my real life and these are things that really happen to me. The answer is very simple as to why Voodoo Donuts and why Portland, Oregon. It's because my question is, why are they abusing kids? That is the whole reason that this came to be any kind of prevalence in my life, and it's the whole reason my life got torn apart and destroyed from the ground up, is because that's the question I asked, and I think that's the question other people should be asking too. If these media outlets are really of any kind of credibility, why don't they start with that question? Why don't they start by asking, is there any credibility to this guy's claims? And then why don't they start digging there first? And then they can ask the question, why would he be saying that they are abusing kids, as opposed to assigning some kind of political motive? Why don't they start with the kind of questions that a real journalist would start with? Who can look into my past is going to find out that I was a very busy musician. In the more recent years, I was a very busy audio engineer. I looked into Pizzagate when I was trying to find out what was happening with these people that I had become aware of, and all of my awareness of this has been in trying to uncover these specific things. And there have been several people that have reached out to me since this that have brought to my attention. They're being like, hey, you messaged me back 8 months ago, 9 months ago, telling me that you had information about this, and all of a sudden they're coming back, and I'm being like, yeah, this was me trying to reach out to you about this because I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on. So my interest in Pizzagate was completely organically because of my trying to find out these people's involvement in this type of thing. And you got to understand, if you had been through what I've been through as a kid, and you saw these kind of patterns repeating themselves, the first thing you would do is try to find out what their relationship was to the things you already understood. Now, I knew this type of thing goes on, so obviously when I found out that it was going on within a group that I'd found myself loosely affiliated with. My goal was to try and see if they related to each other, what I could find out. And it's the kind of thing that got me in the crosshairs of these people.
Looking at the logo of Voodoo Donuts in the context of Pizzagate, one detail immediately stands out. The spiral symbol on the figure's stomach bears a strong resemblance to the Little Boy Lover logo from the declassified FBI document showing symbols and logos that predators use to identify each other.
All right, so something about these logos, you may wonder, why would those images be within a logo? And again, as I mentioned with the social media posting of hashtags that you would question why someone would post, it looks like an advertisement to people that know what they're looking for. If you're utilizing a symbol that's known for a certain terrible thing, people would know that the establishment encourages or engages in or is somehow connected to those activities. And if you were interested in it, there's probably some type of dialogue known by that community to find out the information and to get yourself involved as well. Or else, why else would they be putting these incriminating symbols inside of their logo?
Now, it is just a blue spiral, so intent and meaning cannot be established from this alone. But in the broader context of things, it's not hard to see why people narrowed in on this, especially when these symbols are confirmed by the FBI and appear repeatedly in restaurants connected to Pizzagate. Putting these images side by side, the resemblance is uncanny. Regardless of your interpretation, the visual similarity itself is undeniable. The Educational Journal Committee for Skeptical Inquiry had a very interesting take on all this. They say, quote, "A legend such as Pizzagate can only spread if the regressive values it reflects, nativism, racism, and xenophobia, are alive and well and resonate with a sympathetic audience. The place is a haven for artists, punks, gays, and other marginal groups. A tangible emblem of inclusivity, tolerance, and other progressive values that are threatening to the conspiracy-prone alt-right." The Committee for Skeptical Inquiry wrote this about Pizzagate originally in 2016, and then The Ringer talking about Donutgate added on by saying, 2 years post-Pizzagate, this remains true. If you talk about this at all, actually, you're just a racist. And everyone talking about this, they're actually just racist. So true, so based. 2016 to 2020 was such a weird time to be alive because people probably genuinely read this shit and like ate it up. I mentioned this last time too, but a recurring theme that you'll see in articles about Pizzagate is that they're all very quick to tell you that it's been disproven or debunked, but then they don't really give you any sort of reasoning as to what disproves it. If they give you a reason at all, it's something very shallow, like what Stephen Colbert said on the Late Night Show. Well, the owner said there's no basement, so clearly none of this could possibly be true.
Correct.
Or it's just a blatant ad hominem like in this article because the theory spawned on 4chan's poll board, which is known to be filled with a bunch of edgy right-wingers. Anyways, along with pizza and children, another recurring theme found throughout Alefantis' Instagram is pandas. This image from his account shows a collage of multiple overlapping black and white shots of pandas.
Now, there's also a conspiracy that panda bears are not even real, that they are fake creatures. I wonder if that's going to tie in here.
A commenter writes #ComePanda, which is another recurring reference you'll notice, and one that Alefantis himself tags on multiple occasions. He uses the tag himself in this photo, which appears to show panda-themed beads or charms that are used to make jewelry, and he uses it again in this picture showing a man wearing a panda mask outside at night. On this image of two pandas leaning against each other with their backs facing the camera, the same hashtag appears again, but you'll also notice that this post is liked by a user going by the handle PandaHeadMorgan. PandaHeadMorgan was a username used by Morgan Hungerford West, a Washington, D.C. based creative consultant, content creator, photographer, and stylist. The PandaHead nickname originated from one of her early blogs, PandaHead Magazine, an online digital fashion and lifestyle publication founded by Morgan and ran by a small creative team. She also founded A Creative DC, a hashtag related to creative communities in the DC area. In an interview with Famous DC, when asked what A Creative DC is, Morgan says, "A Creative DC is a platform that acknowledges and represents all aspects of the amazingly diverse creative communities and creative economy in the city. It started out as a social media account, A Creative DC on Instagram, and a hashtag, as well as a once-a-week interview series on my blog, PandaHead. It has since accumulated over 30,000 tags, and we recently expanded the platform to include a website, acreativedc.com, that has a weekly updated featured gallery of local projects and a blog that includes interviews, roundups, and imagery all related to what's going on in the creative fabric of the city. We like to think of it as a resource and also an access point. Morgan West and her team were also involved in the creation of a short film known as Cult Panda, but with the U spelt with a V. Make-A-Zine called the project a perfectly creepy panda cult camping film. The project opens up with a group of young adults embroidering eye symbols onto the backs of their jackets. The group then gathers and performs a pseudo-ritual, joining their arms and moving together in a clockwise circle.
Cult ceremony, anyone?
Members of the group then draw more symbols in the dirt with sticks, while other members begin preparing for what can be assumed is some sort of offering or tribute made of sticks, string, rocks, and plants. The video ends showing the group gathered around a fire late in the night. They ritualistically chant in unison, then they applaud, and the video cuts to a shot of the moon in the night sky before fading to black. On its own, it really doesn't stand out that much. It does seem to me like just some sort of short artistic horror film. But what does stand out is that it is extremely hard to find. I spent like 3 or 4 hours just looking for this video, and I was kind of disappointed when I actually found it. I was expecting to find something wild, but the whole thing is no longer than like 6 minutes and nothing even really happens in it. Maybe it was just really niche and ended up getting lost to time. I don't think that's necessarily an unlikely scenario, but for whatever reason, it's extremely hard to find any mention of this film online. And that goes for Morgan herself too. It seems like she's deleted a lot of her presence from the internet. But before her LinkedIn profile disappeared, she was listed as Global Brand Director for the Line Hotel at Sedell Group, a New York-based hospitality company specializing in the development, management, and creation of unique upscale lifestyle hotels. Sedell Group was founded in 2011 by Andrew Zobler, who remains the CEO to this day. Prior to a legal conflict beginning in 2016, billionaire Ron Burkle played a significant role in the founding of Sedell Group. Several sources online credit him as a co-founder, with him at one point even owning a 50% stake of the company. Burkle is also a good friend of the Clintons, with him personally donating millions of dollars to the Democrat Party and having raised an estimated $100 million through fundraising events he held for Democrat candidates, including both Bill and Hillary Clinton. In an article published by the HuffPost, they even refer to Ron Burkle as Bill Clinton's bachelor buddy. He also has connections to Obama, whose campaign he also donated to, albeit a very insignificant amount compared to the Clintons. He's also a longtime friend of Donald Trump, so needless to say, he's a very well-connected guy. In 2003, Burkle invested an estimated $100 million into Sean John, a men's clothing brand founded in 1998 by rapper Sean John Combs.
So he's connected to presidents, he's connected to Diddy. Wow. My dog's asking to come in, so let me go grab him.
Better known by his stage name, P. Diddy. Ron Burkle's name can also be found on Epstein's Black Book of Contacts and on the flight logs of Epstein's private jet, the Lolita Express. The article, Who Was Jeffrey Epstein Calling?, published by The Intelligencer, reads, Burkle took what were described as humanitarian trips to Africa with Bill Clinton on Epstein's private Boeing 727. According to a 2008 Vanity Fair feature about the former president, quote, Burkle's usual means of transport is the custom-converted Boeing 757 that Clinton calls Ron Air, and that Burkle's own circle of young aides privately refer to as Airfuck One. In March 2007, former New York Post gossip columnist Jared Paul Stern filed a defamation lawsuit in New York Supreme Court against Ron Burkle, Bill and Hillary Clinton, the Daily News, and several others. The situation began in 2006 when Burkle accused Stern of trying to extort money from him in exchange for preventing negative press coverage. Working with authorities, Burkle secretly recorded several meetings between the two, claiming Stern suggested that payment could influence how stories about him appeared in Page 6, a celebrity gossip column that Stern was a longtime contributor for. Stern later disputed this characterization, claiming that Burkle reached out for a $220,000 media consulting deal to ensure positive coverage and suppress negative stories, but secretly recorded these meetings to frame him, leading to a suspension from Page 6. Stern farther went on to accuse Burkle of hosting debaucheries involving models, some of whom being underage, and implicated the Clintons in using their influence to amplify the narrative and protect themselves from the scandal. Stern's allegations ultimately did not hold up in court, and obviously no charges ever materialized for any of the accused. The civil suit was outright dismissed on June 16, 2008 by Justice Walter B. Tolub of the New York State Supreme Court. An article published by Daily News quotes Justice Tolub as calling the suit a political diatribe and saying the claims are completely baseless, saying specifically that it read more like a Mickey Spillane novel. Only months later, in October 2008, the same court would dismiss another civil suit involving similar allegations, this time ruling in favor of defendant Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, these cases are legally unrelated, but hindsight is 2020, and looking back on it, the similarities are hard to ignore.
Are you starting to see the connections here? We're seeing a lot of different worlds connected. Presidential, Epstein, the music industry, all coming in under this blanket of Pizzagate.
Both cases featured serious allegations being leveled at extremely wealthy and well-connected people, and both ended up getting tossed out. Anyways, Morgan Hungerford West is in a relationship with Mitchell West, who is the bassist for the band Loud Boys, spelt with a Z. The Kennedy Center describes the Loud Boys by saying they, quote, collide punk, hardcore, and garage rock in a way that Vice's Noisy calls the kind of music meant to be blared from rooftops. They've shared the stage as direct support for bands like The Buzzcocks, Marky Ramone, Andrew WK, Darkest Hour, and Diarrhea Planet, at venues including 930 Club, Baltimore Soundstage, the Howard Theater, and Black Cat. They've also performed at Comet Ping Pong multiple times and even held their release party there in January 2015. On Mitchell West's Instagram, you can find pictures of him and the band together, him with Morgan, and this photo, where Satan is real is written on the wall in marker. Morgan comments under this photo, I knew it. This is a picture of the couple's door. You'll notice in the top left, the magnets spell out 666. And right next to that is an image of a pizza slice. Like so many other elements in this case, this itself does not prove anything. Pizzagate is so difficult to research because it seems like so many things here point in one direction, but at the same time they could all have far more benign explanations. This is another picture from the Instagram of Mitchell West that began circulating in online discussions, and it's the perfect example of what I mean.
I think that a lot of things that connect Pizzagate are how, for example, the door, 666 in magnets, and there just happens to be a slice of pizza magnet there as well. Many different instances and occurrences like this lead many people to believe that pizza is connected to evil. It can't just be coincidence that hashtags, images, magnets, or even straight up posts are connected to pizza in this way and it not be something.
The image shows a set of hospital visitor badges from Children's National Medical Center, specifically referencing the NICU, a unit dedicated to newborns requiring intensive medical care. Viewed in isolation, the picture carries no inherent implication, but in the context of all the surrounding speculation, even something seemingly ordinary became a point of fixation. Without any definitive answers here, the meaning that you draw is completely shaped by your perspective. So how do you see it? Another thing that I mentioned briefly in part 1, more so as just a passing comment, was the Podesta art collection. Just like last time, Ethan is back to give you the rundown, so I'll let him take it away.
Hey guys, it's Mr. Pilled, and I'm extremely happy to be back on, and I'm glad you guys liked part 1 so much. So, for part 2, I'm going to be handling Tony Podesta and his very peculiar art collection. See, John Podesta, who you're likely already familiar with, has a brother who he's very close with, a man named Tony Podesta. And Tony Podesta is a creature of his own. See, Tony has a very interesting lifestyle with some very peculiar interests that we'll get into here soon. Just a little background, Tony is a prolific lobbyist in Washington and co-founder of the Podesta Group along with his brother John. So you know he's well versed in shady politics. See, the Podesta Group itself came to an end under scrutiny, being investigated for violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act, allegedly lobbying for a pro-Russian Ukrainian political group. See, suspiciously, this is what made Tony step down as the head of the Podesta Group, though eventually a Podesta Group spokesman would deny that there was any affiliation with this scrutiny. So who knows? Maybe Tony really didn't have any relationship with pro-Russian Ukrainian political parties, but he certainly had a relationship with convicted child sex offender Dennis Hastert, a seemingly long and close one at that. Dennis Hastert is a former Speaker of the House of Representatives serving from 1999 to 2007. who in 2015 was indicted for illicitly structuring financial transactions, aka failing to report the withdrawals of $952,000 in cash. What the hell was he withdrawing that much money for, you ask? Well, he planned to use that money to conceal his past misconduct that came in the form of hush money. Turns out, that hush money was going towards a specific individual, an individual that was a victim of sexual abuse from Mr. Hastert during his time as a high school teacher and a coach. Another student would end up coming forward and corroborating these claims, and Hastert would be forced to admit to the abuse. Dennis would plead guilty to financial crimes and admit to the sexual misconduct. The prosecution would seek a sentence of 15 months in prison, sex offender registry, and a $250,000 fine under the pretense that he abused at least 4 boys, which he admitted to. But unfortunately, Mr. Hastert could not be prosecuted for these abuses due to the statute of limitations expiring decades prior.
Why such a short sentence for such a disgusting crime? That's not making sense. And still, he's going to get away with it.
You might be asking, how is he connected to Tony Podesta? See, here's a picture of Tony Podesta to the left and Dennis Hastert to the right at a summer camp in Camp Nose, Japan, 1965. Tony and Dennis both took a trip to Japan in 1965 as a part of the People-to-People Student Ambassador Program at Northern Illinois University. This is likely where they met, and they most definitely kept up with each other because here are a few leaked emails referencing Dennis from Tony. Dear Mac, can't believe it's almost 50 years since Camp Nose. I have stayed in touch with Denny Hastert. It's wonderful to reconnect with you. Are you posted in New York? I would love to see you. I have stayed involved with Japan and do work for the Japanese ambassador. Send me your contact information. I look forward to seeing you. Best, Tony. So he's keeping up with his convicted child sex offender buddies. Kind of weird, right? Well, weird doesn't explain the half of it, because we're about to get into his favorite pastime, collecting art. Between him and his wife, there are over 700 pieces of art registered under their names. They were so dedicated to collecting and displaying pieces of art that they completely renovated their own home around the display of specific works. That was not any regular occurrence. According to this article published in 2004 by John Hooper of The Guardian, Tony and his wife, Heather, commonly took Herculean trips to Europe to purchase pieces, saying that it wasn't uncommon for them to leave Friday evening and return the following Monday. The article says that they are privy to awkward works that are easy to store but hard to display, such as video pieces. So naturally, they had a massive basement vault constructed, white on all walls, which would be able to show off complicated video pieces. Strange, but kind of typical rich people stuff, right? Using art to evade taxes and whatnot. Except there seems to be a common theme when you take a look at what this collection consists of.
And I was going to say the same thing. A lot of people that are extremely wealthy have to invest in art to avoid taxes. So it's not an uncommon thing. But the video element here is getting strange, and I'm really curious of what the videos are going to consist of. We're about to find out.
Mind you, before we get into this, Tony and his wife are both quoted with saying that we don't purchase anything we don't love. We'll start off with a handful of pieces that are available for view on the National Art Gallery website. If you go take a look for yourself, you'll notice that although the art isn't blatantly perverse, there are a few images of nude women, which, again, is pretty typical in artistic realms, but they're alongside an uncomfortable amount of images depicting children. Here's what seems to be a piece showing 2 men in the woods with underdressed children watching them, looking skittish, like they're being hunted or something.
Hunted, yep.
It's up to interpretation, but it's certainly strange. This one's labeled hula hoop, for obvious reasons, I think. It's nothing but a young girl holding a hula hoop. However, I can't help but to notice how this girl is posed. Her body posture is open and looking into the camera. It looks like the kind of posing instructions you give to an adult to appear seductive. But again, this could just be confirmation bias, given the context after the fact. This one's a lot less nuanced. This one is just straight up inappropriate. The name of this piece is Curtsy, which is the name of the greeting a woman gives when she bends the knee with one foot in front of the other. But that's a facetious title, because this is obviously a young girl peeing outside in the open with her underwear around her knees. She's even bending away from the road. Just very, very inappropriate at best, and perverse at worst, depending on how you interpret it. These are only a few examples. And honestly, they're just the tip of the iceberg, because not all of Podesta's pieces are available for viewing on the National Gallery. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the reason for this is due to their gross, sadistic, and perverted nature.
The worst
Through
ones
the
aren't
watchful
shown.
and all-seeing eye of the internet, there have been glimpses of the art Podesta has hung up in his very own home, most of which frequently and blatantly represents violence, nudity, sexual abuse, satanic ritual, and all of the above, but with children. I'm sure you've seen this one. Tony is certainly very proud of it. But in case you haven't, this is a sculpture resembling an infamous image of one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims' contorted corpses. I don't know many well-adjusted members of society that
didn't
would
know
even
that.
think of buying art like this, let alone hanging it up in their home and posing with it happily. I don't know, but maybe I'm just not rich and disconnected enough to get it. These are the works of Biljana Jurčević, a Serbian artist who, according to her own bio, creates works that deal with social problems. And those who object to her work are usually those who are part of the problem, which I find very interesting in this context, and I tend to be very, very questionable of. She's a reoccurring artist in Mr. Podesta's collection, and all of her works here depict children in compromising or restrained positions, underdressed, looking afraid and disheveled.
You have to think the artists creating this stuff too have definitely gotten a screw loose, because you don't create art like this if you're normal.
Perhaps malnourished,
Whatever normal is.
but it gets worse. I mean, just look at this. I really don't know how much is going to be censored, because I don't know how much YouTube will allow, but I don't know what kind of artistic interpretation something
don't
like
allow
this
anything.
could possibly have. It's just, this one is plain and simply put a child in their underwear, with their arms restrained and hung in what appears to be some kind of bath or shower room. But what's even more baffling is, why would you hang something like this up inside of your own home?
Yeah.
In terms of just being purely disturbing visually, Jurčević's paintings they're pretty bad. But another notable artist that Podesta is very fond of is someone by the name of Kim Noble. In an interview once, Tony claimed Kim was one of his very favorite artists, which will make sense as I show you her works. Her art's certainly not as visually detailed as Jurčević's, but the actions they depict are even more depraved. By a lot. Viewer discretion is advised for these.
Oh boy. Of course, they're going to have to be blurred.
These are all exactly what you think they are. I don't think I feel the need to explain them explicitly and individually.
We can
Kim
imagine.
Noble is a schizophrenic who suffered horrific abuse as a child herself, and thus her artwork reflects such, containing abstract, surrealist, painted images of extreme sexual abuse and the torture of children. You could probably go out on a limb and say Kim Noble is simply using her art as an outlet for the horrific events she experienced as a child, but for you as a man, as Tony Podesta, to openly claim that these artworks are some of your favorites and to perhaps even display them in your home is, I don't think that's right.
Remember, they did say they only purchase art that they love.
And I think that segments well into a connection that I want to make next between certain individuals and their proclivity for strange art. I'd like to compare this to another person's peculiar taste. That of Jeffrey Epstein's. This is a piece called Little Miss Pink Tomato that was reportedly purchased by Mr. Epstein. It bears a striking resemblance in themes and contents and imagery to Jurčević's paintings, the ones owned by Tony Podesta. This is another piece owned by Mr. Epstein.
I'm sorry about the blur. The reason why there's so much blur of these images is because YouTube finds them as inappropriate and against their terms of service. So for these videos to not be taken down off of the platform, they need to be blurred. So you have to use a little bit of imagination to kind of understand what they're showing.
Which shows a young girl laying over a lion pelt. But if you pay attention, if you really look at it, you'll notice that this young woman is wearing a wedding band. This canvas was huge too. It was around 5x5, 6x6, pretty large, and Epstein had it hung up at the bottom of his basement stairs. I want you guys to take this information in and consider the correlation here between these individuals and their shared taste in art, for lack of better words. How many people do you know who enjoy works like these? Do you think this kind of art is appropriate? And does it say anything about those who take pleasure in viewing or owning it? This is just food for thought. And speaking of food for thought, before we end things, I want to touch on John Podesta just real quick. Being that he was Tony's brother, it's pretty pertinent. Now, if you've seen part 1, you've likely seen the WikiLeaks emails, but there's also an old video that allegedly contains audio of John Podesta being a young child. If you've seen part 1, you've probably seen all the strange WikiLeaks emails from John Podesta. I mean, this is where it all stems in the first place. But there's an old video that allegedly contains audio of Mr. John Podesta, Tony's brother, being a young child. Now, it's a hard watch, or a hard listen, rather. And in this video, you can hear what appears to be John Podesta berating a young kid, asking him what his name is. The child screams "John" in response while crying and clearly being in distress. The man in the video, who sounds suspiciously like Mr. Podesta, then scolds the child and demands a correction, again asking what his name is. The child corrects themselves and calls him Skippy. This is interesting to me because there just happens to be a White House document that recounts a conference where John Podesta mentions his nickname, Skippy, saying, quote, "I want to start off with an important announcement. On the advice of my new team, I've decided to change my nickname from Skippy to John the Body Podesta." End quote. Again, I just want to reiterate that this is simply food for thought. I'm not saying anything outright. This is all alleged, but I'd really like you to take this information in and stew on it for a little while. Really take it into consideration. It's a lot of coincidences.
To add on, I don't think that it's controversial to say that at the very least, these artworks are provocative. Some people will say that art is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, and I don't think that's necessarily untrue. And if you look into the backstory of someone like Kim Noble, they suffered severe trauma as a child, so it makes sense why they paint the things that they do. But you can't lend that same credence to the consumer of the art that you can to the artists themselves. Sure. And when someone is actively collecting so many pieces of art of this nature, it does raise some red flags about their own mental state. If someone's really an avid art collector, you might be able to justify owning 1 or 2 of these works in some sort of private gallery. But when you own hundreds of paintings like this and you hang them all throughout your house, that doesn't come off as someone who's an art collector. That comes off as someone who has some sort of psychological issue. Like, yeah, you can say he's an art collector, but at the end of the day, if I walked into my friend's house and he told me he's an art collector, and this is what I see plastered all over his walls, I'm no longer going to associate with that person because there's something wrong there. Naturally, the release of the Epstein files has reignited conversations around Pizzagate. Of course, the key difference between these two situations, like I mentioned earlier, is that Epstein's crimes were established through formal investigations, and Pizzagate was never officially verified or even investigated at all. But the parallels seen between some of the emails released in the Epstein files and the Podesta leak back in 2016 are hard to ignore. Specifically, the sheer amount of references to pizza and other food items and the context they appear in really stand out. And of course, there's the obvious fact that the Epstein files confirm that these rings really do exist, and they're ran by a bunch of rich weirdos and politicians. So even if you don't believe in Pizzagate at all, the crazy conspiracy theorists on Poll were right on the money about literally everything except maybe some of the people involved and the locations. Searching for pizza on the Department of Justice's Epstein library yields 911 results, or at least it did about 2 months ago. That's the number you'll see screenshotted and shared all over Twitter or X. But while researching, I searched the term myself, and it only came back with 819 results. That means that the DOJ, for whatever reason, removed nearly 100 mentions of the word pizza from the files.
Why would they be removing mentions? What do they have to hide? potentially the truth.
But here's where things get weird again. So as you can see, I'm on the DOJ website and I'm gonna search for the term pizza. As you can see, it comes back with 895 results now. And I've searched the term like 5 or 6 times over the course of the past 2 or 3 weeks. Each time it comes back with a different number. It's weird that the number is fluctuating up and down, and I really don't know why that would be the case. The only possible guess that I could come up with is that knowing that only roughly half of the files have been released to the public, they're deleting some of the mentions of the word pizza and then replacing them with different mentions of the word pizza. Perhaps replacing them with messages that appear to be more innocent in nature. But that's just my best guess. I really have no idea. All I know is that I completely trust the DOJ, and I'm sure nothing's being covered up. But like I said, many other food items that appeared in the Podesta leaks frequently in strange contexts also appear frequently in the Epstein files. Soda appears 367 times, hot dog appears 96, pasta and sauce are mentioned 409 and 428 times respectively, walnut appears 317 times, ice cream 585, and finally, cheese appears a whopping 1,116 times. And these are foods that were confirmed by the FBI to be used as code words for, you guessed it. Just like in the Podesta leaks, a lot of the time it seems like they're being brought up in relatively normal contexts, but at the same time, nobody talks about food this much. How many times do you think you've messaged your friends the words pizza or cheese in any context? I can almost guarantee you it's not 2,000 times. And then there are, of course, obvious outliers that are pretty easy to determine as coded language. Like this one that reads, "Let's go for pizza and grape soda again. No one else can understand. Go no." Or this one, "Pizza party was great. We had a lot of fun, stayed late. We all slept in yesterday morning. Your night was good? You're a grown adult having a pizza party with your friends? Really? The last time I had a pizza party was when I graduated 6th grade and we all had a water balloon fight the same day." Or this one, subject, "You two free for dinner on 12 or 13 January? Mary not free. Would love to get a pizza for an hour. Or come over." Oh wait, that one actually isn't from the Epstein files. That's an email that Tony Podesta wrote to his brother John in 2014 that was published by WikiLeaks 10 years ago. Point being, the similarities here in both subject matter and context are pretty blatant. In the inbox of Jeffrey Epstein, you can also find this email sent to him by a redacted name. Epstein was sent this email in November 2017. The subject is Spirit Cooking, Strange Solomon's Temple on Epstein's Island. If you remember from last time, Spirit Cooking is an artistic performance created by Marina Abramovich. She has, by her own description from an AMA she hosted on Reddit, framed it as an occult ritual in private contexts. From this email sent from Abramovich to Tony, it's clear that both of the Podestas were participating in, or at least had knowledge of, these occult rituals that were taking place in the privacy of Marina's home. The link sent to Epstein leads to a YouTube video that has since been privated or deleted. The video title is the same as the subject of the email, and using the Wayback Machine, you can watch the video for yourself. The video centers on Epstein's golden domed temple on Little St. James, drawing comparisons to Solomon's temple and highlighting symbolism associated with Moloch.
There is something odd on this island. Located on the southwest corner is an odd building. If we take a closer look, it appears to be some kind of temple with a strong Egyptian style of design. It resembles the Dome of the Rock, or a Solomon's temple in structure. We can only imagine what is inside, but one can speculate that it's probably of a similar nature to other temples described in ancient times. If we take a closer look, on the top of the roof there is a golden owl statue. This owl is known as Moloch, an idol that is worshipped at Bohemian Grove in California, which was infiltrated and exposed by Alex Jones some years ago. Bohemian Grove is a men's-only elitist club that performs strange rituals such as cremation of care, where they offer sacrifices to Moloch.
Creepy stuff.
Moloch can be found all around us, even on the dollar bill, and in Washington, D.C. Moloch has In the Bible, Moloch was also portrayed as a bull, a golden bull, and was worshipped by the Canaanites. People who worshipped these false idols were thought to be evil and corrupt.
Keep in mind the timeline of events here. The email was sent to Epstein in November 2017, shortly after Pizzagate and by extension Marina Abramovich's spirit cooking became a very hot topic online. The Epstein case, as the public knows it today, would not begin developing until 2019 following his arrest. But for whatever reason, this person, whose identity has been redacted, felt like Epstein should watch this video. But I do real quickly want to touch on one of the new theories that has arisen in light of some of the newly released Epstein files. You see, for people who have been made aware of Pizzagate at any point in time over the last 2 years, they've generally fallen into one of two camps. You either believed it or you didn't. And of course, the people who did believe there was some truth to this conspiracy were the minority. Of course, now that people are talking about it again and government distrust is at an all-time high for a multitude of obvious reasons, people are looking back on the theory through a much more skeptical lens. But a new theory has been formed because of one of the emails sent to Epstein. The email reads, "There's a cool guy, parentheses kid, that you should meet. He is only 23. Read his bio." Attached is a link to the Wikipedia page of Christopher Poole. Christopher Poole is better known by his online moniker, Moot. Moot is the founder of 4chan. Poll, 4chan's politically incorrect board, was created just 3 days after this email was sent to Epstein telling him that he had to meet Moot. Before Poll was created, the majority of 4chan were already right-wingers, but Poll was intended to act as a containment space for politically sensitive or extreme discussions. 4chan is anonymous and places a lot of emphasis on free speech, so naturally it attracted people with extreme opinions and just a lot of trolls looking to make edgy jokes. The idea of a containment space serves an obvious functional purpose for the website. By concentrating this type of discourse into a single area, it becomes easier to moderate the site as a whole. Now, it is not confirmed that Epstein was at all involved in the creation of Poll, but the dates here obviously make a lot of people suspicious. If we're entertaining the idea though, what would be the benefit of creating a space specifically designed to attract political incorrectness? Well, the conclusion that you can draw from that is that anything that comes out of this board is much more easily dismissible. According to this train of thought, I'm not saying it's true, Pizzagate, however real or not it may be, was intentionally allowed to be discussed on 4chan's poll for a reason. If the theory is real, well then the people implicated can be defended by the rest of the media, and all of the allegations against them are coming from a bunch of basement dwellers anyways. These people are into traps and posting Pepe reaction images, so clearly they have nothing of substance to say. If it's not real, well it's still a big reason why Trump won his first term. After all, he was the anti-establishment candidate who was a businessman and not a politician, and he was going to drain the swamp of all this corruption. A poll conducted by YouGov in December 2016 found that nearly half of all Trump voters believe that there is at least some truth behind Pizzagate. And it is odd that so many things here seem to point in one clear direction, but yet there's no hard evidence or proof of any of it. Nothing here is verifiably true. Of course, I encourage you to form your own opinions, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that people were intentionally led on this wild goose chase as some sort of distraction, because these people genuinely believed that Trump was going to be a radical break from the two-party system. Of course, as we all know by now, that didn't end up being the case at all, and he's actually been implicated in the biggest political scandal of our lifetimes, at least so far. Whether you think he's incriminated in the files or not, him and his administration are at the very least trying to sweep it all under the rug. It's also worth mentioning that Epstein's name was being thrown around in Pizzagate threads all the way back in 2016.
Wow.
3 years before anything of this level would be confirmed to exist in modern society. Just like everything else here though, nothing is confirmed, so all we can do is speculate.
So if you didn't know about these dark alleys of Pizzagate, now you do. I want to give massive credit to Chase and Mr. Pilled for this incredible video. I'll be linking the original video in the description of this one for you guys to go give them some credit. And if you want to dive even deeper into Pizzagate, go check out the original video right here.